farmer rescued a sheep that was frozen in the snow, but he was shocked when he saw who she was keeping warm. This story happened in a remote village somewhere in the wilderness of Russia. A sheep farmer called Dmitry lived in the village with his wife Agatha. The couple were in their mid-40s and loved each other very much, but despite their love for one another, they were sadly unable to have children. Both Dmitry and Agatha had wanted a child of their own to love and care for. However, it seemed as if it was not meant to be. The couple had come to terms with this fact and continued to live their lives happily on their large farm. During the day, Dmitry would rise with the sun and go about greeting all of his sheep in the barn. However, there was one particular sheep, an ewe called Shelly, that Dmitry was particularly fond of. Each morning, Shelly would run up to the barn gate and bar at Dmitry until he petted her and gave her some food. The farmer would always smile at the animal's mischievous behavior and happily gave in to her demands. After feeding the sheep, Dmitry would let them out into the fields to roam and graze until the evening, when he would gather them all back into the barn again. However, this all changed one day. It was a particularly nasty winter. The temperatures had constantly been in the -degrees, and snow kept falling, covering the ground in a thick layer of cold, white ice. Despite the frigid weather, Dmitry continued with his daily routine. He would head over to the sheep, greet Shelly, and then let them all out to graze what they could. Meanwhile, the farmer would then spend his time tending to his land. However, on one particular day, Dmitry noticed that a bad storm was brewing. Agatha also noticed the awful-looking weather and warned her husband that he should get the sheep in, lest they all freeze to death when the snowstorm hit. Dmitry agreed with his wife and made his way out into the field. He managed to gather all of the sheep up with the help of his farm dog, Max. Just as the last of the sheep were heading into the barn, a sudden and violent wind almost knocked Dmitry over. The storm had arrived, and it was going to be a very bad one. The farmer quickly made his way back inside his home, content to wait out the storm in the comfort and warmth of his house. All throughout the night, the storm raged and the snow climbed even higher. However, by the morning, the storm had passed and the sun was shining once again. Dmitry smiled and got up to start his daily routine, but as he entered the barn, he knew that something was wrong. Unlike every other day, Shelly did not run up to the gate and start bleating at him. At first, the farmer thought that she might still be asleep, so he began to move around the sheep pen to see if he could spot her curled up on the floor. Perhaps she had just forgotten to greet me today, the man thought. Dmitry then started to call out, shouting Shelly's name over and over to see if she would come to him. But when the sheep still didn't appear, Dmitry knew that she was not in the pen with the rest of the animals. But if she was not safely tucked away in the barn, then where was she? The farmer turned around and looked back outside at all of the fresh snow. He knew that Shelly was somewhere amongst that pile of white. But would she still be alive? Or would she have frozen to death in the storm? Fearing the worst, Dmitry instantly began to search for his missing four-legged friend. He started calling her name again and again whilst searching all over his property. But no matter where he looked or how loud he called, the farmer could not seem to find the missing sheep. It was soon lunchtime, and Dmitry had had no luck finding out where his fluffy friend had disappeared off to. Just as he was making his way back towards his house from one of the furthest fields on his property, Dmitry noticed an odd shape in the snow. It looked like a mound had formed up over something. At first, the farmer thought nothing of it. It's probably just an old wheelbarrow or something like that, he thought. But as the man got closer to the mound, he realized that it was moving ever so slightly. It was at this point that Dmitry began to hope that he had found his lost friend. The man ran the rest of the way to the mound and began to dig at the snow that piled on top of it. When he finally managed to break through the thick layer of white powder, he was ecstatic to find Shelly hiding underneath it. The ewe was wet and very cold, but she was alive, and that was the most important thing. Dmitry then began to carefully dig out all of the snow that surrounded Shelly in the hopes that he would be able to get her to stand up and walk back to the barn with him. Once a small circle had been cleared away from around the sheep, the farmer took a carrot out of his pocket and began to try and get the animal to follow him. But for some odd reason, the creature did not want to move. Dmitry tried several things to get the animal up and walking. from teasing her with the carrot to pushing on her bottom, but nothing the man did would get the animal to stand up. Finally, getting fed up, Dmitri decided that the only thing left that he could do would be to pick Shelley up and carry her back to the barn himself. But as the man picked the sheep up off of the ground, he was shocked to see what was underneath her. Curled up in a ball underneath Shelley was a boy, no older than 9 years old. It turned out that the sheep had spotted the boy just before the storm the previous day and had curled up with him to provide him with some warmth and keep him from freezing. Dmitri was shocked. He didn't know who the boy was or where he had come from. However, the man did know that the young child needed his help. The farmer quickly put Shelley down and instead picked the boy up from the cold ground. He asked Dmitri who he was and where he was taking him, to which the farmer replied that he was taking him back to his home. Once back at the house, Agatha was equally as astounded by Dmitri's discovery as the man was himself. The woman immediately set about trying to warm the child up. She gave him a blanket to wrap around himself and told him to sit by the fire whilst she got him a hot drink. Once the boy was finally comfy and warmed up, he told Dmitri and Agatha that his name was Sven. He then pulled out a crumpled note from his pocket and gave it to the couple. Dmitri and his wife read the note, only to find out that Sven's mother had been very sick, but she didn't have any relatives to look after her son. She apologized for leaving him all alone and asked that whoever found him take care of him as if he were their own child. After they had read the letter, Agatha and her husband were heartbroken. The boy had been left all alone with no one to look after him. After a quick discussion, the couple decided that they would raise Sven themselves. They had always wanted a child, and it looked like they would finally get their chance to be parents. Upon telling the boy their decision, Sven was overjoyed. He liked Dmitri and Agatha and had secretly hoped that they would take care of him. Sven lived happily with Dmitri and Agatha. As he grew, he would often help the farmer tend to his sheep and his land. They became a happy family who loved one another. As for Shelley, she was spoiled with lots of treats for saving the boy and keeping him warm all throughout the dreadful winter's night. This story just goes to show that animals of all kinds have emotions and understand when someone might need help. What a heartwarming story! Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible tales.